So let's just get right into it, Michael. My first question for you is about the Sweet 16. Who has the easiest path to the Final Four?
Well, that's an interesting question. I would say that one of the compelling things about this Sweet 16 is that it may be the most accomplished in. I mean, I've been doing this for more than 3 decades, and I don't know that I've seen a Sweet 16 that has more teams that have done significant things. And I looked this up the other day, and I hope my math is right, but I counted five of the Sweet 16 that did not win either a conference tournament or a regular season championship. Only five. That's very rare. And then those five teams, I did the math on that as well, and they averaged 29 wins. So you're talking about a lot of winning in this Sweet 16. So I wouldn't say that anybody has an easy path. I would say that probably as regards the way they play, and the type of opponent that's best for them, that Virginia probably is in the best position, although I do have some concerns technically about the matchup zone that Oregon's been playing and the length and the dynamism within that scheme. I do think that, look, if Virginia can't beat a 12 seed that just barely, just got its act together, a month ago, then that's on them.
And I think part of the reason potentially that we do have a Sweet 16 with so many winning teams in it is the seeding. So, do you think the reason that there was a limited number of upsets in the first weekend of the tournament was because they got the seeding right this year?
No, I'll be honest with you. I think it had largely to do with the fact that the teams at the top were really good, that there had been a separation. And I do think that they did a fair job with the seedings, a good job in some. They usually only miss a few teams. When I do every year on the night of the bracket reveal, a breakdown of every region and categories, underseeded, overseeded, etc. And there's usually only a few that stick out as underseeded or overseeded. In each region, it's like an easy choice, and then it's not like I'm choosing between five or anything like that. So I think they did fine with that. It's just that the teams at the top, and I really believe this all the way, that they were just stronger.
That's a very interesting point. I think we talked about it on the show all year that there kind of had been this separation, and I think you're right on the nail there with that. So let's talk about something that's particularly pertinent to us. ASU made a stride this season by actually getting into the first round of the tournament. But how do you think Bobby Hurley, I should say, has actually done so far in this being, I guess, year three?
I always try to tell people that, the way I describe it is that not everybody's playing the same course. I mean, like you go out and shoot a 70, not that I've ever done that, but let's say you go out and shoot a 70. Okay, they're shooting a 70 on the local municipal course, and then they're shooting a 70 at Augusta National. It's a different deal. What is Arizona State's historical norm? And then what has Bobby Hurley done relative to that norm? That's what people don't pay attention to. They think that every single program is the same as Duke or Kentucky. And how come we're not Duke or Kentucky? My answer to that is, okay, you want to be Duke or Kentucky, build a time machine, go back in time, and then build your program up the way that Duke and Kentucky did, 40 to 75 years ago. Investing in it, caring about it, attending the games, hiring the right coaches, and all that kind of stuff. And Arizona State, let's be honest, I mean, they spent decades not really caring that much. When they were decent, and they were never great, the crowds weren't always great. This is for the first time a program that has an apparent full investment. They hired a very capable coach. They've fixed facilities. Students are getting involved. Crowds are getting involved. And now you have a program that is workable. That maybe in 15 years you say to yourself, how come we didn't make the tournament 3 years in a row? But I understand it was only the first four, but this is a program that really in its history does not have that sort of consistent achievement. It's a program that in many years did not make the tournament and did not compete at the highest level. So I think you have to look at how many coaches in Arizona State's history made the tournament 2 of their first 3 years?
Yeah, good point.
There been any? I don't think there have.
Good point.
Michael DeCourcy joining us from the Sporting News and also a studio analyst for the Big Ten Network. Michael, here's a question right up your Big Ten alley. What makes this year's Michigan team different from the previous two that made the Sweet 16? Are they better? Are they worse? Is their path to the Final Four and maybe the national championship more difficult or less difficult than it was at this time last year?
Michigan, you say?
Yes.
I want to make sure I don't confuse them with the Spartans. Yeah, I think that what's different about this team is that it is entirely defined by its defense. A year ago, they hit on a formula about a third into the season when they made Xavier Simpson their full-time point guard. And when they did that, they became a significant defensive team. And by the end of the year, Mo Wagner was playing very well offensively, and they were able to combine those two and get to the championship game. They lost Mo after last year to the NBA, and they've had to work to build an offense, and I think it's still somewhat a work in progress, although it is improving of late. It still tends to be sporadic. You have Charles Matthews for a while was doing very well, then he got hurt. He hasn't been the same offensively since. Iggy Brazdeikis was on a tear going into their game against Florida. Did not play well in that game, and they had to get points from other places. So their offense is still not a sure thing. It's a trip-to-trip proposition. That they don't. And it's a game-to-game proposition on who matches up well with that particular team. That they'll try to emphasize that player. So it's not. I don't know if they're as. I don't know if they're as versatile as they were a year ago because of Mo Wagner, but they have more high-level players in their rotation. A year ago, they had some very good college players, but I think more of the guys that they have now are significant talents. A guy like Isaiah Livers comes off the bench now and gives them a pretty bouncy guy who can shoot the ball and attack the lane, and he can do a lot of different things. Brazdeikis, as I mentioned, very versatile, can shoot it from deep and also attack. And so they've got a lot of that, but I do think that they still they have to be just right to be able to get through to the Final Four in the national championship.
So, Michael, you talked about Isaiah Livers and some of the players that Michigan has, Xavier Simpson, namely. It seems like every couple of years we talk about a dude who is able to just transcend and make people remember them. I'm talking about guys like Steph Curry, Kemba Walker, even a Jimmer Fredette. Is a guy like that still in the tournament this year?
Oh, absolutely. Zion Williamson is the biggest star in college basketball in a generation. I mean, I've compared him to Shaq, but I mean, I remember when Shaq was in college. Shaq was an incredible player, but he didn't command the nation in the way that Zion is. I think you have to even go back further than that. I mean, start talking about guys like Walton. And I'm not saying he's that player, but in terms of his star power, I don't think that there's been a player in college basketball in the time that I've covered it, and that began in '87, that has that sort of appeal, that it transcends. There have been very prominent players. Christian Laettner, mentioned Shaq. Chris Webber was special. And there have been others, Kevin Durant for his 1 year. But I don't think there's been anybody quite like Zion who people really are seeking out in the way that they are.
Michael, last question for you. Thank you so much for coming on with us here at Heat Check. Switching gears a little bit, you are an ambassador for Coaching for Literacy, and it is a great program. You guys have 50-plus NCAA partners, and I've noticed lately a lot of teams wearing green ties or wristbands to support the cause. How did you get involved with this?
Honestly, I will say that early in my career, I was donating to literacy charities because I realized that that's my, people being able to read is basically what keeps me in business, so to speak. And so I did that then, and I hadn't in a while, and Gary Parrish gave my name to the gentlemen who operate this foundation, And so obviously right away it sort of reminded me that I should have been doing more for literacy in the past 10 years or so. And so I, absolutely was very eager to do whatever I could. And honestly, it's not hard. I mean, it's just basically to help promote what policies they do, the programs and policies that they do have in place. It doesn't take a lot of work from me. I don't deserve a lot of credit for it, but I'm more than happy to do it because I really believe in that as a cause, especially as someone who makes the living with the written word.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Michael, thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
Okay, guys. Enjoy the rest of the tournament. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. You have a good day.
All right, you too.